Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to the Caithness Amateur Dram Antics Society tasting. Uh, Tonight, I'm going to do a tasting of a tasting set been sent by Cadenheads, the February 2025 tasting set for the releases of original collection, and there's two Enigma bottlings in this. So when you order this on the Cadenhead site, you get the option of going into order a tasting set. They release this time there's 4 bottles of the original collection and 2 Enigma releases. And what happens is you order the box. I think this cost £25. It's 6 2cl measures. And I think it's a good way to explore whiskey because it's a very expensive hobby if you're going to buy bottles of as many releases as you can. Because I reckon to buy these 6 bottles would cost in the region of £400 if you're buying full bottles. So £25, £10 postage and packing. It comes in a nice box, nice sturdy box, which is also inside another box. And when you open it up, you'll see it's labelled with the February 2025 tasting pack, original collection, and Enigma. And you get your 6 little grams inside, and you get a little card with tasting notes on it. It tells you on the front card Cadenhead's original collection whiskies provide a showcase from a variety of distilleries from Scotland and beyond. Each distillery has its own distinct character and flavour. We select casks from our warehouses in Campbelltown to explore and present the best that each one has to offer. And then for Enigma, something that is mysterious and seems impossible to understand completely. The whiskies we bottle in our Cadenhead's Enigma series are just that, unusual, hard to quantify, perhaps even slightly contradictory. They can be single casks, battings of multiple casks, blends, blended malts, or whatever else we can find that doesn't fit into our existing bottling lineup but meets our only essential criteria that they're good. So for this set, I've got Macduff 13-year-old bottled at 46%, Glenallacie-Glenlivet. Cadenhead like to suffix their Speysiders with Glenlivet. So Glenallacie-Glenlivet 10-year-old at 46%. An Enigma single malt Irish whiskey 10-year-old at 44.3%. A Kilkerran 13-year-old at 46%. An Enigma Speyside 16-year-old at 51.9%. And a Ledaig 14-year-old at 46%. So we're kicking off with a new distillery for our videos. I have tasted some from Macduff. We've got a Macduff 13-year-old at 46%. So I'll just tell you a little bit about Macduff Distillery, which is one of the newer distilleries in Scotland, in Speyside, having been founded in 1958. Marty Dyke, George Crawford and James Stirrett and Brodie Hepburn founded the distillery. Together they founded Macduff Distilleries Limited. Construction was completed in 1960 and the first cask filling occurred in June the same year. In 1965 the number of stills was increased from 2 to 3, and in 1967 another still was added, which brought the total to 4. In 1972 William Lawson acquired the distillery and managed it until 1980, at which point the company was bought by Martini Rossi. Under Rossi's direction, it continued to expand, adding another still in 1990, so then we're up to 5 stills. And in 1992, Rossi were bought by Bacardi, and the management of Macduff was transferred to John Dewar and Sons, a subsidiary of Bacardi. Dewar and Sons still manage the distillery today, and Macduff is a major component in their blends. So it has a production capacity of 2.4 million litres, and it draws its water from local sources, including the Gelly Burn, which lies adjacent to the distillery. So I don't know if you've ever been to Macduff. It's sort of across the bay, linked by a sort of causeway between Banff and Macduff. Two famous golf courses, one in Banff, Duff House Royal, and one in Macduff, which is Royal Thurlear. Both very different types of golf courses. So the pot stills, it has 2 wash stills and 3 spirit stills, which is a highly unusual setup in Scotland. The only other distillery to have such a production structure is Talisker on Skye. The wash stills have a capacity of 20,000 litres, whilst the spirit stills have a capacity of 12,500 litres. All of them have a traditional Speyside shape with a wide spherical lid and tall conical necks. And they have a speciality of the stills with a heavily bent line arm. It sources its malt from an industrial source in Speyside and uses a combination of peated and unpeated malt, depending on the purpose of the spirit that the site is distilling. The malt that is used in the production of the spirit intended to be sold as single malt is often slightly peated, which gives it a gentle smoky taste. It also uses entirely unpeated malt, which is used both in the production of raw whisky intended to be sold as single malt and intended for blending. Of course, John Deere's and some big blenders. It has quite an impressive on-site warehouse, which houses the whisky which is intended to be sold as single malt, and also that which is used for blending. And it has a combination of both dunnage and rack warehouses, and uses a combination of sherry and oak casks to age the whisky. It has a range of official bottlings. The official expressions released are 16-year-old, 20-year-old, and 30-year-old, which are actually released under the name of Glendeveron. So sort of the River Deveron runs close to the distillery, and it's a sort of glen that goes down there, and it's the whisky released by the distillery is called Glendeveron. It has changed its name a number of times during its history. In addition to the official releases, it's also been bottled by a number of independent bottlers. Duncan Taylor released a 45-year-old, which retailed at a phenomenal $2,300. Gordon MacPhail released a 13-year-old bottle, and Hunter Lang have a 21-year-old bottling, which is in a more affordable price range. And Cadenhead, as tonight, and Signatory Vintage have also released independent bottlings, which are often released under the name of Macduff as opposed to Glendeveron, which is used and legally protected by the distillery. But only 10% of malt whisky is bottled as single malt whisky, which is owing to the fact that the majority of spirit is used as a major component in Dewar's as well as William Lawson blends. And it's certainly a whisky that warrants a taste, as preconceived notions can often obscure a genuine appreciation. So it's had name changes, and it has faced challenges in establishing an identity. But it reliably delivers a commendable whisky, occasionally surprising with intriguing notes brought forth by its swift fermentation time and the use of condensers. And it often features in Cadenhead releases thanks to its affordability and dependability. It's a solid choice if you're looking to a satisfying dram that won't break the bank or empty your pockets. This one was distilled in 2011, fully matured in bourbon cask, and it retails at £55. So pour my dram, and I'll let you know what I think of it. I do like to take little notes when I'm tasting whiskey, just to remind me what I've tasted, and I also score, but I don't reveal my scores here because I do feel I don't want to start a league of whiskies. I'm going to find a tasting book that's not been filled up too much. Easier said than done, I have to say. I'm going to have to put in a notebook for now and score it up afterwards. So, let's see here. We've got a Macduff, so a little 2cl bottle. Quite pale coloured, this one, I have to tell you. A little swirl in the glass, you can see that's very pale. So we've diluted this down to 46%, which I think helps the price. Single cask whiskey, of course, limits the number of bottles they can get. So watering it down, I'm not sure how many bottles are in this release, but it's got some tears, not terribly thick tears, but there are some. It's a thin tide line. Let's see what we've got on nose. And I'm getting boiled sweets and lots of honey and toffee and pears, and of course from the bourbon cask I'm getting the vanilla pods, and you get that sort of old-fashioned lemonade and creaminess. It's a nice note, a wholesome array. It's light and honeyed, and you get that sort of stale apple juice and hay. And then you get a sort of herbalness, parsley and lovage. And behind that, there's touches of burnt sugar and nuttiness. And yeah, definitely lots of vanilla as well. We'll try the mouth. And it's a pleasing mouthfeel, texture and reflux. And it feels stronger than 46%. It's very balanced. More honey, gorse. I once made gorse ice cream. You get the yellow flowers of the gorse and you infuse it into the cream as you eat it, and it does give it a sort of, it's almost like a coconut flavour. So I'm getting honey, gorse, wood spice, and there's a touch of wood bitterness and vanilla. And I get bitter oranges, a wee touch of soap, lemon drops, and icing sugar. And the finish is medium length. It's quite clean, uh, maybe a bit sugary on Fanta Lemon and Limoncello. There's a little bit of paraffin in the aftertaste. Having said that, I'm going to try. Uh, let's see. We've probably got about 12 mils left in the glass, so I'm going to put in just about a mil of water. And yeah, you can definitely see a bit of haze forming. These are all gnome coloured and chill filtered, of course. And now I'm getting apples, pears, honeydew melon, gooseberries, and demerara sugar, and some heather. We'll try it above. It's like the diluted nose, pears, apples, digestive biscuits, and some warm golden syrup. And the finish is lemon sponge cake. Vanilla, buttery, barley, whipped cream. So, well, I find that it's a nice blend of dependability and affordability. It 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 maintains a certain charm even at this reduced strength, and offers a refreshing lightness that you could appreciate as the warmer days approach. And if I was in search of a single malt suitable for a dairy pour, I think this would certainly be an excellent choice. £55 a bottle? Yeah, I think that would be a good house strand. So I'm going to cleanse my palate with McAllister's rough oat cakes from Lidl UK. So yeah, we're now moving on to Glenallacie-Glenlivet, 10 years old. So this one's prior to Billy Walker's takeover. The when Walker took over, he said he was keen to get back into whiskey with a view to long-term development. He took over Glenallacie in 2016 after selling Benriach to Brown Forman. And he did say that the availability of mature distilleries was very thin. He took it upon it to be too good an opportunity to miss. So we're probably still waiting to see the results of Billy Walker's whiskey production. He really only produced the single malt brand in 2018, and this one, well, you know, the whiskey industry appears to be bracing for a challenging few years as the golden age of Scotch, or the current golden age of Scotch, seems to be slowly fading into the past. And we probably do fail to learn from history the whiskey lake. And I can't help but wonder if Glenallacie will find itself among the distilleries up against it during this period. You know, it's an independent player in the single malt arena. It's gained attention thanks to the allure of collectible releases and an abundance of sherry cask influence. But I've tasted a lot of Glenallacie. There was a wine series I tasted in a tasting set a while back, various different wine finishes, and it struck me as rather average, and it lacked a unique character. So it's in the crowd. And its branding, it doesn't appeal to me, the branding. And all of that is rather a precarious position to be in. So without a robust single malt identity and a loyal following, tough times might loom ahead. And I sincerely hope that's not the case, or the fate for any distillery, and especially those that depend on the niche markets. The financial resilience and risk tolerance of owners will undoubtedly be put to the test in the months ahead, and that will affect both new and established distilleries alike. But this whisky, it was distilled in 2014, and again fully matured in bourbon casks, 46% again. And again, we're quite pale, straw coloured. And again, it's quite thin tiers. There are tiers, a thin tagline. Yeah, it's definitely Glenallacie. Butterscotch, tablet, and toffee. Like hardened wine gums and pulped apples. And there's some moments of meadow fruits with oak as well. And nuts, pine needles, resin, orange peel. And it's like an enormous bag of apples of all kinds. But there's also a very slight metallic touch. Silverware, let's say, the sort of polish you get for silverware. We'll try the mouth. It's very oaky. It's quite bitter. And it's an old dense oak. I do wonder about the quality of cask in this one. There are some black peppercorns, apples, and toffee with a little vanilla. It's sweet and sugary, dried fruits with a woody mild spice profile. It's quite creamy, and it's like a succession of liqueurs: triple sec, parfait amour, sweet amaretto. Yeah, and the finish is medium length. It's sweet and malty, and it almost feels like a liqueur has been added, which is, of course, impossible. Uh, and even if it were possible, Cadenhead wouldn't do it. Uh, I'm going to add a mill of water to this. Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of Scotch mist starting to form there. And now I'm getting the walnuts, the caramel, sandalwood. And again, I'm getting gorse on this on the nose now. Remember the Macduff? I got gorse. I'm getting a bit more gorse here. Of course, gorse would start coming in a couple of months. We'll try them out. It's quite malty. I'm getting white grapes, almonds, and stem ginger. I'm getting orchard fruits in the finish. Kiwi skins and cinnamon. I'd have to be honest and say this isn't my cup of tea. Um, it's it reminds me of some of the casks matured whiskey that utilised harder wood with mixed results. Not quite McMyra, but down that line, which I always felt was a bit chemistry setish. Uh, and whilst a bit of time in the glass, a little bit of water mellowed the harshness of the oak, it still carries the essence of Glenallacie blending stock, perhaps from a well used or weedy cask in the mix. Uh, and Cadenhead doesn't blend to the same quantities as Shivers, making it difficult to mask the imperfections. So now I'm going to cleanse my palate again. So next up, we have something a bit different. Uh, it's a single malt Enigma single malt Irish whiskey, 10-year-old, at bottle at 44.3%. Now, it doesn't tell you this other Enigma, but I think a bit of research, and I think I sort of know which distillery this is, and it isn't the Bushmills. I think it's from further south. And it's exciting to see some Irish whiskies emerging from Cadenhead's warehouses. because there have been some delightful moments in the past from the Irish whisky distilleries from Cadenhead. And they always improve a little by a stay in Scotland, as are most things in life. So I think this comes from Cooley Distillery. I'm not going to go into the long history of Cooley Distillery other than to say it was opened in 1987 by John Teeling, and it was the first time in 100 years that a new distillery had been founded in Ireland. And it produces about 650,000 litres of malt whisky a year and 2.6 million litres of grain whisky. So this one was, again, a bit of research. So it says 10-year-old. But it was distilled in 2006 and matured exclusively in bourbon barrels until February 2025, with a total of 726 bottles released. So what about a 10-year age statement on the bottle? This is because Cadenhead's moved the cask from Ireland to Scotland after 10 years, and any maturation outside of Ireland doesn't count towards the official age statement. So it's probably 18 years old. And it retails at £75. An 18-year-old Irish whisky. Fully matured in bourbon casks. And it's a little darker than the first two, but then it is 18 years old. It's still not terribly dark. And it's got thin tears in it. And immediately I know this isn't single malt Scotch whisky. But I'm going to talk you through what I'm getting here. This is triple distilled, and I'm getting a little candied ginger, lemon posset, tinned mango chunks, fizzy apple sweets, and sherbet dibdabs. It's a very sweet nose, but it does feel slightly empty and watery. There's not much body here. Going back in, I'm finding some buttercream, frosted icing, stewed green grapes, and a very light eucalyptus note in the background. Freshly washed and sliced green apples, yellow raisins and blackberries, and a buttery apple pie with vanilla. There's a fruit punch aspect with some alcohol, fresh cinnamon, minerals with talcum powder and puffy, powdery marshmallows. We'll try them out. And again, I know this is single malt Scotch, but it does have a bit of a leathery note. Still quite sweet, sugar syrup, candied lemon peel, and freshly squeezed apple juice, and key lime pie. The initial sip is a little astringent and rough, a little bit of black licorice, but it then moves quickly into mellow fruits and citrus. It's very juicy, and the alcohol does give it a tiny bit of a kick, but it's super easy to sip. And putting out the ABV, the mouthfeel is reasonable, and it's got an oozing texture, And the tropics don't dominate. There's moments of apple pie filling with raisins, green mango, white chocolate, and some soft young oak. And the finish lingers on for a decent while with desiccated coconut and a bit of vanilla custard. And there's a wee touch of fresh licorice towards the end. I'm going to try a mill in this one too. I wonder if you get Irish mist. There's nice tears on this. A bit thicker than the first two, but then the first two were slightly higher strength. Yeah, nice thick tears on this. And it's more acidic. And I get more of a menthol note than before. More lime and a touch of prickle brine and barley sugar, rich barley sugars. I'm still getting the mango, but it's further in the background now. Try the mouth. Oh, it's more malty now. And the coconut is now toasted and stewed fruits compared to the fresher fruits from before. And with water, the mouthfeel and the finish are broadly the same. So I would say adding water is to your own personal preference. Maybe try a bit and see what you think. Wouldn't add too much water. So cleanser pack. Well, I'm sorry, I'll tell you a bit about what I think of it. So it's fun to have an Irish whiskey, uh, and it's suited for anyone that appreciates an easy drinking style. And the hints of the tropical flavours emerge playfully, and they don't dominate the profile. There's an intriguing roughness that adds character in moments. It's full of fruity sweetness with a bit of maltiness in the background. It's a bit light for me, lacks a bit of body and heft, but that works with the overall profile of the whiskey. Uh, a Sunday morning dram, dare I say. Uh, and it's worth a try for anyone who enjoys Irish whiskey. So I'll cleanse my palate again. So, next we're moving over to Campbelltown, and it's Mitchell's Glengyle distillery release uh, from across the high street from Springbank. So, I think Kilkerran stands out as a strong contender for the title of the most value-driven single malt whisky. It offers an experience that's rewarding and beyond its price, so you get good bangs for your buck. The heavily peated versions have garnered a loyal following, but they're not to everyone's taste, especially if you prefer a milder profile. And this particular release from the original collection, it softens some of the distillery's characteristics, but maintains its value-oriented appeal, and it serves as a perfect introduction for a broader audience. And this one has been in ex-bourbon casks from 2013. Sorry, 20. Let me think now. 2011, and then it was transferred to Ruby Port casks in 2020, and then bottled in February 2025. And so, I port and whiskey. I think if you have a whiskey that spent too much time in port casks, then you can repurpose it by reducing the influence of the port. So let's see what we're doing with this one. This one retails at £65. You see immediately it's got that little rosy red tinge to it. Be interested to see what this is going to be like. Definitely got a ruby rose, and it's got lovely tears. I love the colour of this. It's almost a rosy wine colour. Mace, and there is a touch of ruby port, but it's not overt. And I get red peppers and sweet berries, oranges, and fruit syrup, rosewater, and a touch of earthiness and caramel. Morello cherries and raspberries, and then peonies, blackberries, blood oranges, sweet red berries, and a soft candied smoke, earthy vanilla, and a lingering oat spice. But all of that is nicely integrated with the classic Kilkerran mineralic profile. I love the colour, and I will try them out. There's a touch of earth. Then you get red apples and charred red peppers. I don't know. Baxter's did a cherry pepper. They jarred it, and it was quite sweet, and it's like that. But I'm also getting plums. Red berries, dried cranberries, and rhubarb, and wild strawberries. It's less of a whiskey and more of a fruit liqueur. Healing, pims, bitter oranges, and then there's peppermint, and then you get more leaves, capsicum and caraway from the oak, I guess. And then lastly, a lot of picked peppercorns. and the finish is long and extreme, and strawberry and raspberry jams with a few bay leaves and pickled ginger for good measure. And I'm going to add a mill to this. And it's lovely tears in this. And now I'm getting honey and raspberries. But above it all, and strawberries, but the kind that's been lying in the sun for a few days. As well as a certain dryness. Fortunately, the initial sour note disappears, and there's a dustiness from an old bookshelf. Trying them out. You get the sweet, earthy notes, alternating with a hint of woodiness that sits with it so well. It gets very dry, but yeah, it's long, extreme strawberry and raspberry jams with a few bay leaves and pickled ginger for good measure. I'm gonna put a little drop more water in there. And I get honey again and strawberries with chocolate. And the finish is slightly dry. I could almost imagine a little bit of smoke. And the sweetness remains on the palate, together with the oak spices. And it's quite long lasting. This is a cracking fusion of whiskey and port. It's a very different taste experience, and it's thoroughly enjoyable. Cleanse my palate. So, 4 down, 2 to go. And we're going now back to Speyside for an Enigma Speyside 16-year-old, bottled at 51.9%. So this is a secret Speyside. And because of the casking of this, I'm not able to narrow down the distillery. It was distilled in 2008 and transferred into Pinot de Charence casks in 2020, before bottling in February 2025. Pinot d'Assurance is a fortified wine uh, made from either fresh, unfermented grape juice or a blend of lightly fermented grape must, to which a cognac eau de vie is added and then matured. And it can be white, red, or rosy. And this one does certainly have a slightly reddish tinge to it. So, 714 bottles this release. And, Speyside, you get images of secret glens, family pride, and grand gleaming red doors. And this one originates from another realm, or as it's commonly referred to, France. And the Pinot d'Assurance can take on the white or red colour. This one retails at £80. I've never tasted Pinot d'Assurance, but I have tried an old potently finished in Pinot d'Assurance cask, where I found it offered a lighter, sweeter taste, layered on the signature old potently flavours. But of course, that's a Highland whisky, the maritime malt. This is a Speyside, so let's see how we do. So there's definitely a reddish tinge again to this. And it's quite dark, 16 years old, non-coloured, unchill filtered. And lovely tears in this. Very, very nice tears indeed. Yeah, it opens with brandy snaps, ginger, cloves, grape skins, and crushed coriander. And I have to be honest, I say the Pinot d'Assurance cask has really had an impact on this. It's sort of more fortified wine notes than whisky notes. Give it a little time, a little bit of air. Get some melon balls, green melon balls. I haven't seen them for years. Green tea leaves. Warm honey notes and some tinned pineapple too. Orange sweet and some chocolate. Terry's chocolate orange. And there's some nutmeg. Cherry stone. Strawberry. I don't know if you've ever had a wham bar. But there's also earthiness, and then you get rhubarb. And that explosion of ripe grapes, honey and candied fruit, an apricot, peach, and orange zest, blended with vanilla, toasted oak, and white chocolate. We're trying them out. So 51.9%, and you do notice that higher ABV. But there's lots of juicy orchard fruits up front. Apples and pears go, and dustings of icing sugar. Behind that, it's like a rye-like spice, candied ginger, cloves, and a hint of star anise. A touch of sweetness given into rubber blend toffee. and then Brazil nuts, and then back to the star anise. But there's moments of licorice, dark spices, that rye again, red apples, plums, and raspberry jelly. It's creamy and full bodied, and there's a nice balance between sweetness and fruitiness. And the Pinot de Chiron's cask brings out flavours of raisins, caramel, and ripe berries, and a hint of cinnamon and nutmeg. There's a soft maltiness and almondiness there. I'm going to try a mirror in this. It still has that lovely rose reddish colour. And it gets drier with dried leaves. And it becomes almost like a young French brandy. Lots more grape must and some overly toasted brioche bread. It's a little astringent now, and it's more, the cask is more prominent. Perhaps maybe go easy on the water. Try them out. And it's much more citrus. Lots of lime. Then into richer toffee and vanilla fudge. There's still some ginger, and the brandy is still noticeable, but there's sweetness that's reading through it that keeps things in check. And the finish is long and elegant, and there's lingering notes of grape juice, honey, and gentle spices, with a delicate oak influence and drying effect at the end. So, yeah, the nose was a bit concerning. There was lots of the Pinot de Chiron's aromas, and not much of the whiskey aromas, but the palate brought it back into balance. It's an interesting fruity and spice mix that moves into richer chocolate and cherry flavours as it develops. It's not typically my preference, but I can certainly see how this would appeal to others. And it adds an interesting twist to this tasting. The second maturation is effective, but I would argue it doesn't showcase the depth you'd expect from a 16-year-old whisky. It's one you would probably want to pour a dry well and sit with for an evening. So, I'm going to cleanse my palate. So, we're heading finally all the way over to Tobermory in Mull for a Ledaig 14-year-old, 46%. So, our Peter of the night. And it brings out an interesting and refreshing twist to the original collection. As you know, Ledaig is highly sought after. And the cost of peated whisky continues to rise. So, any efforts to make it more available and accessible to people is certainly appreciated. And by bringing it down 46%, they make it better value uh, and they get more bottles. So it's more readily available. So Ledaig is peated at 35 parts per million. I don't know where the peat is sourced from for the uh, peating of the barley. Uh, it's owned by Distell, who also own Bunnahabhain and Deanston. So it's possible. Bunnahabhain gets its barley from Port Ellen on Islay. So it's possible that Tobermory may get it from there as well. But when I've tasted Ledaig, I don't get the iodine TCP of Islay. So I wonder if anybody knows. I'd love to know. But the other thing about Tobermory whisky is that the water source used by the distillery means the water they use has a phenol content of 2 parts per million. So even Tobermory has a residual, minuscule peat element. This one's been fully matured in bourbon casks after being distilled in 2010. And I'm been impressed with the few Ledaigs I've had recently. So let's see, it's a bit darker than the first two, a bit older than the first two, and it has nice tears. And it's softly coastal with sea salt and damp peat. There's old rope, shoreline pebbles, and driftwood. And there's a little bit of brine and some engine oil residue. And then you get the crystalline peat smoke, lemon juice. And then you get that grubbier, puffer smoke in the background. Creel nets and a big surge of pure seawater. This is impeccable and pristine modern peated whisky. I'll try them out. And a pleasing texture remains alongside peat and salted caramel. Ice cream wafers and a touch of chocolate with driftwood and that old rope again. It's richer, oilier and rounder than the nose suggested. Big, thick notes of tar, malt vinegar, chipbat, mercurochrome, lemon juice, and smoked olive oil. And there's an impression of sardines and anchovies and brine, along with green olives and dirty martinis. And the finish is long, perfectly sharp, coastal, medical, and it still displays a lovely depth and weight to the peat smoke. I'm going to add a mill to this. And that has lovely tears. And this big, sooty, a more mechanical smokiness. And there's impressions of preserved lemons, black olives, and smoked sea salt. And on the mouth, there's more refinement. And it goes towards a sort of gentian, eau de vie, natural tar, vapour rubs, and bandages, medical tinctures, TCP, yeah, and smouldering peat embers. And the finish is long, softly smoky, lightly herbal. It's still very coastal, and there's a bit more vinegar and lemon juice. Well, sometimes taking down the calf strength character of a whisky can yield great rewards, and with this one, I think I appreciated some of the gentler aspects of Ledaig shining through, but the wild coastal essence remained, yet feels less intimidating, and it highlights the quality of the distillate at the lower proof, as it keeps a sufficient complexity and texture to keep you engaged. For me, modern Ledaig is very hard to argue with. So, I think the Kilkerran and the Ledaig are both worth a try. The Glenallacie didn't impress me much. The Macduff is affordable, and the Enigma Irish whiskey is a good version of its style of whiskey. So thanks for listening. I thoroughly enjoyed that tasting. See you soon.